What is this season's success look like? What does failure look like? Best case, worst case scenario. This fits right up in Georgia fandom alley, Daniel. Exaltation, depression.
Here
Right
we
after
go.
this.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is up, everybody? I am Daniel. That is Clint. Happy to be back here with you. Today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn. The fine folks over at LinkedIn. Happy Monday to you. Welcome back. Clint, how was your weekend, first of all? How are things? People love it when we just banter at the beginning of the show.
That's right. That's exactly right. My weekend was great, Daniel. You know why also my weekend was great?
Oh, tell me. Tell me more.
Because the month of July has
That's
ended,
right.
Daniel.
That's it's over. No, it's ended. It is finished. It's done. We're done with. We don't do that month anymore. Do you know what the current month is?
Oh, here we go.
How are we doing now?
College football is played this month.
Right here, right all up on your head right now. That's where college football. It's right in your zone. Is what we're trying to say. Oh, week 0, just a few weeks away, Clint. September 3rd, Georgia, Oregon at the Benz. That is just.
By the way, we've got a preview show coming. Went on Locked On Oregon last week. Did a preview show. That one is coming with Locked On Oregon. So more to come.
Cannot wait. More to come on that. But today, Clint, we're going to talk big picture. By the way, thanks for subscribing. Audio, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, like, thumbs up, all that stuff. Drop us a comment. Scully Reddy, thanks for being our MVP, favorite listener of the podcast. Listen, we're going to talk big picture today. We've got plenty of time to get into the nuts and bolts. The fall camp is coming. We're going to get into practice. We're going to start to get some reports coming out of camp. All of a sudden, you're going to hear me mention Malachi Stark's name over and over and over and over again.
And then you will see me just
yeah. But right now, we're not going to talk about any of that. We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty. We're not going to get lost in the weeds. We're not going to talk about how many touchdowns Brock Bowers is going to have.
A lot.
What we're going to do is we're going to talk about what will it take to make this season a success. Now, and I mean by Georgia's standards, by these standards. Maybe it will be you have to win the national championship. It's a success. And that's it. That's the minimum standard.
That's the threshold right there for some of y'all.
We're going to give our thoughts about what the minimum requirements are for a successful season for this year's Georgia team. What are the minimum requirements for a failure of a season? Basically, what is the best we could do and still the season would be counted as a failure? And then in the third segment, we just throw it to the wind. We're going to throw a caution to the wind. And that's what we're best at. And we're going to give our best case scenarios and worst case scenarios for the season.
So what you're saying is we're going to purposely go off the rails. Normally that just happens by itself. We're going to purposely aim for the rails.
Listen, sometimes the rails know that their job is really, it's ambiguous at best on this podcast. The rails get out of the way most of the time because we want to go off. The podcast wants us to go off the rails, Clint. That's what we were made to do. But let's talk about first, what will it take to make this season a success? And I'll just start by posing the question that I just posed to the listener, to you, Clint. Is it national championship or bust in terms of a successful season for the University of Georgia? Do we have to win it all in order to have a quote-unquote successful season?
Let me try to pair this or put this within parameters of what Georgia football is and will continue to be. Okay? We are now
helpful.
Powerhouse, one of 3 or 4 perennial playoff contenders that are penciled in every single year. Okay? It's us, Alabama, Ohio State.
Jury's out.
We'll see about Clemson.
Give one season. It is a one-season litmus test for Clemson.
One.
They get it back together this season. It was just a blip on the radar.
That's right.
They don't. Goodbye, Clemson.
Yep. Bye-bye, Dabo. So we're that. Secondly, we have 10 years of Kirby Smart, who's going to continue to recruit, who's going to continue to get offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, head coaching. All of that is there. We now have a dynasty. And yes, I'm calling it a dynasty. It's one national championship. I understand. But it's a dynasty. Compare his numbers in the first 6-7 years with Saban's number the first 6-7 years. It's unbelievably similar. We have a dynasty. So here's what I'm trying to say by this is this. Many of you would say, well, if we don't make the SEC championship, the whole thing is a failure. And I'm going to push back and say that's the expectation every year, but it's not a failure because of this. A failure is anything. We'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah, I was just about to say. We're talking about success. Okay.
Success is
I can't even stop my man from talking about failures. He wants to talk about failures. He needs to talk about failures.
Welcome to my depraved and darkened heart. This is how I live my life. Success is this. Success is 9 wins, Daniel. 9 wins is success. That's it. Because we have an Addy. We have recruiting classes. We have Kirby for 10 years. I said success. I'm not saying great. I'm not saying good.
Okay.
I'm not saying either of those terms. I'm just saying not a failure. That's what I'm suggesting to you. The expectation is SEC championship. That's the expectation, which is I have that every single year.
Yeah.
But if you lose a couple of games here and there, because of some weird oddities or injuries, that's not. You can lose 3 guys to major injuries and still win 9 games.
Well, if you lose people to major injuries, Clint, it's impossible to win any games ever.
It's impossible.
I don't know if you know that. It can't be done. No one has ever done it before.
In the history of football.
No. Okay. Couldn't disagree more with this thought. I will say this. Number one, minimum requirements for success. You must win the East, period. If you don't win the East, this season is a failure.
I agree with that.
Everything is a failure. You have to win the East for the season to be a success. I'm going to stop short of winning the SEC championship. I agree with you on that. I do not think Georgia has to win the SEC championship for the season to be a success. Listen, I'll be the first to say it. On paper, Alabama has a more talented football team than the University of Georgia does this year.
Yep.
They better beat the crap out of us. Good Lord, what would it mean about Nick Saban if they didn't beat the crap out of us?
Ooh, here we go.
What kind of coaching would it take to take Will Anderson and Bryce Young and not decimate a Georgia team that's lost everyone?
Do you see how this works? Draft? By the way, fan, do you see how this logic works?
What a pathetic display it would be.
You've done this to yourself, by the way, Alabama fan.
Okay. So you don't have to, for the season to be a success, I'm going to say it's got to be 11-1.
Okay.
It's got to be SEC East representative in the championship game. And you can't get the doors blown off against Alabama. You can lose that game and still have a successful season. You'll be in a New Year's Six Bowl. You won't make the college football playoff. So I'm going to say Georgia does not have to make the college football playoff to be a successful season. 11-1 SEC East champion. Those are the minimum requirements for a successful season. Georgia fans, we got the natty. It's in the house. You don't have to go out and defend it the following year.
No.
In the current era of college football, no one has ever done that.
Ever.
No one has ever done that in the current era of college football. When games decided the championship instead of voters. So if no one's ever done that, you can't say you have to go do that in order to validate the previous season. The previous season's already validated, so that's a successful season. We're going to come back and talk about what it looks like. What are the minimum requirements for a season to be a failure? Basically, how good could Georgia be and yet still fail as a football team? But first, Clint's going to tell you all about the fine folks over at LinkedIn.
Daniel, have you heard of LinkedIn before? I
No,
hope
I
you
have heard of
have.
LinkedIn. I have.
Then
I've heard of
let me
LinkedIn.
tell you more about LinkedIn. LinkedIn, there is another coming cycle of hiring going on. Right now, businesses are opening back up. COVID is falling down, and jobs are here, and LinkedIn is here to make it easier to find people that you want to talk to faster and for free. You get to create a job post in minutes with LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond. The world's largest professional network of over 810 million people, just shy of the number of wide receivers injured for Alabama. Then
That's
add
right.
your job in the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that your hiring to your network can help you find the right people. Simple tools for the skills and experience you need to quickly prioritize. Right now, LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. And every week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn. Post your job for free. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, Clint. We talked about success.
Yep.
Let's talk about failure.
Ooh,
I'm going to go first here because
please do.
it would be easy to say, okay, you just take the opposite of whatever I just said, and that would be the requirement. So, like, let's say we go 10-2 and we don't win the East.
Failure.
That's a failure. Okay, but technically speaking, that is true. 10-2, not winning the East, not playing in the SEC championship game, that is absolutely a failure. I'm going to go a different route here for you, Clint. I'm going to go outside of the wins and losses. And I'm going to look at the team as a whole, and I'm going to tell you if there are games this year, I'm talking about more than just a one-off anomaly. Okay? I'll give you one game. Things are weird. Most teams have one game each year. But I'm going to go multiple games. If there are multiple games this year when the offense struggles to score, this season is a failure. I think I don't need to put a record associated with that because if this offense struggles to score, I think it's going to be very hard for Georgia to win games this year. If we see that year 3 in Todd Monken's system, all the returning skill position players that we have, the returning offensive line that we have, the returning quarterback that we have, which some of you guys I know don't like, some of you like, it doesn't matter, I don't care. If we see this offense struggle to score, I think at that point, as a Georgia fan, if you're going to be honest with yourself, you have to be willing to say to yourself, uh-oh, maybe there's something wrong. Maybe this is really a situation where Georgia's not getting the right guys in the right spots, and we're not able to utilize the guys that we have in order to. Now, again, ask me about Georgia's offense last year, and I'm going to tell you about one of the best offenses in college football last year. Not the most explosive, high-scoring offense in college football, but one of the best offenses in college football. But if we see lulls in scoring this year, if we see prolonged stretches where the offense is not able to move the ball, I think from a big picture perspective as a Georgia fan, you have to look at this season and go, that's really where we need to take our next step as a program in the dynasty, is take our next step in terms of offensive system, to put some of those recruiting classes together, to put those pieces in place and be able to utilize them in the most effective way. If you see the offense struggle, I think that's your quickest path to failure on this Georgia football team.
I like that. That was a quick synopsis. That's an easy summation statement. I'm going to break it down into 3 categories. If we lose any game that we are supposed to blow somebody out, you look at the schedule. If we lose any game,
most of the games. So that's September 3rd in the bins. If we lose that game, boom, season failure.
I said blown out. But if we're supposed to
blow, 17-point favorite.
Well, okay, then we need to discuss what a blowout is. Okay, we need to discuss what a blowout is.
More than 2 touchdowns a blowout.
Okay, then I need to paraphrase. I need to go back.
Okay,
Daniel. If we lose any game to bottom feeders,
okay,
Vanderbilt, if we lose the game but win every other game, my gosh, I'm livid. If we lose to South Carolina, many people, by the way, have South Carolina picked to finish second, Daniel, in the East. That's
People
insane.
just buying in on all that quarterback.
Anyway. If we lose, if we're in those competitions, okay. If we take games that we have a coin flip in, okay, which aren't many, let's just for the sake of argument call Tennessee and Kentucky the closest to that. I'm not saying the coin
argument.
Flips.
Yeah, sure.
The closest to it, guys.
Okay.
Look at the schedule. If we lose more than one of those games, we lose both of those games, season's a failure. We lose Tennessee, we lose to Kentucky, season's a failure. And in games that are supposed to be competitive, not a coin flip, but maybe if we get to the SEC championship and we get blown out in the SEC championship, the season would be a failure. And that's not isolated because it would mean everything you just said, which is why I like how you put it. If the offense struggles to score points, the season's a failure because all of these things are more than likely going to happen. Because the defense is going to regress a little bit, and how flow of game goes is the defense bailed us out a couple times, changed momentum, yada, yada, all of that last year. I get it. The defense is going to take a step back, but also flow of game is going to be decidedly different in this. Okay?
Yeah.
And if you don't know what I mean by that, just again, think of Nakobe Dean pick 6. All of a sudden, that game just blows wide open. Arkansas, right? You get a punt blocked. All of that happens. Game is totally, the flow changes. All of that is predicated on our offense scoring points. And if we can't, then those games are going to be a lot tighter than they should. We might be in a battle with somebody we're supposed to be stomping. We may lose to Tennessee because we can't keep up with the points and our defense gives up 3-4 more points than last year. And all of a sudden we go to Alabama in the SEC championship, we get blown. All of these things could happen in isolation, and they mean failure because it means the program is not where I thought it was right now. We are now to the point.
You lose both the games to Tennessee and Kentucky. That's a failure. You get blown out by Alabama. That's a failure. You lose to the bottom feeders in the SEC, and by that, I think you put it really well. You mean schools like Vanderbilt, Missouri, Florida, the bottom feeders in the SEC. And so you lose any of those games, then the season's a failure. I like those. Now, these are no fun.
No.
Let's talk about the floor and the ceiling because we're going to come back here and we're going to give you our best case scenarios. And listen, best case scenario is not 15-0 win the national championship. That's not the best case scenario for Georgia. We can keep going from there. You understand? And we will keep going from there. Okay?
Test us. Bet.
Just wait and see. We'll be back after we tell you about BetOnline. Speaking of betting, BetOnline is your online sportsbook expert, Clint, and I don't know if you're aware of this. We discussed it earlier in the show, but I know how your memory is. College football starts this month. You understand? It's this month. What do you like to do around college football season?
Bet all that money, season win totals, over-unders, conference championship, playoff.
You like to bet the money. You like to bet the money. All that money. What if I told you I just made a 5-game parlay today for week 0, Clint? I'm out here betting on Vanderbilt, Hawaii. I've got money on Vanderbilt, Hawaii. I've got action on a Wyoming game. I don't know what's we're out here thinking about these games, thinking about how we're going to bet our money. Locks is coming, y'all. Week 0 locks is coming, and I cannot wait. Get to BetOnline right now. Make your first deposit. Enter the promo code Locked On. They give you a welcome bonus. That's a big fat bonus that they give you free money with which to wager on these games. BetOnline, the official sportsbook partner of the Locked On Bulldogs podcast, and your online sportsbook experts.
Daniel, you said before break that we're coming back and we're going to talk about what the best case and worst case scenario is. Let's start with the worst news and then let's get to the best news. What's the worst case scenario for this season, realistically, as you see it? How do we end the season as Georgia 2022?
Keep in mind, we're talking about the worst case scenario.
The floor of the season.
Okay. The floor of the season is Georgia goes 8-4. They lose to Florida. They lose to Oregon,
Yep. There it is.
Florida, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Nope. Oregon, Florida, Auburn, Tennessee. Those are the 4 losses. Georgia goes 8-4 on the season. After the season ends, Kirby Smart takes a head coaching job in the NFL.
Oh, gosh. Oh, my God.
You asked me for the worst case scenario. You understand? 8-4 doesn't do anything about the natty that I'm sitting with in my back pocket right now. Georgia goes 8-4. That's terrible. People are making fun of us. People are writing stories about us. One hit wonder, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't do anything about the fact that we won a national championship. Okay? Wait for it. Florida is the representative of the East in the SEC championship game and beats Alabama to make it to the college football playoff. Alabama, 12-1, also goes to the college football playoff. And Alabama wins the national championship. Florida makes the college football playoff in year 1 under Billy Napier. And Kirby Smart takes the head coaching job for the New Orleans Saints.
Okay.
That's the worst case scenario.
Okay. I can't help, guys. Look, I'm talking to you listeners. I can't help him. Help me help him. Because I can't. Because I said
who wrote the segment, Clint?
You wrote the segment, but I'm asking you, Daniel, what is actually realistic about that? Kirby Smart is not going to be head coach of the freaking Saints.
You didn't ask me for realistic. You asked me for the worst.
I did. I said, what's the floor? I said,
scenario.
What's the floor? Worst case scenario is we don't win a single game, Daniel. There's the worst case scenario.
I would rather not win a single game. I'm being dead serious right now. I would rather not win a single game than the scenario I just described to you.
100%. No, I'm with you. If after this season we don't win a single game, but Alabama doesn't win the national championship, Florida doesn't make the college football playoff, and Kirby Smart stays head coach of Georgia, okay, fine.
We can move on.
We can move on
from this.
I could move on from that. If all 3 of those things happen, no, that just threat level orange is going all over the place. There is scorn everywhere. It's bad. Here we go.
Brad Nessler is replaced, and Gary Danielson's new partner on SEC on CBS is Dan Mullen. That's the new worst case scenario.
By the way, Dan Mullen, which is now a possibility because Dan Mullen is getting a job as an analysis, with the analysis of college football for ESPN. The man who couldn't win anything is now analyzing why he couldn't win.
Those who can't do teach. That's the saying, right? And
but
those who can't coach get jobs at ESPN as analysts.
Well,
is that accurate?
That we know is true, beyond true.
Here's
the 100%. Actual worst case scenario. Let me give you an actual floor for the season.
Okay.
We lose one of Kentucky and Tennessee. That's 1 loss. We lose to Oregon. That's 2 losses. And we lose to Auburn. That's
not the school I thought you were going to say.
Nope. That's the floor. I think a 3-loss in-season play is the floor of this season. And
to be clear, you told me the season would be a success if we went 9-3. And then you told me that the floor for this team is 9-3.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I love it. This man is determined to be miserable even when he's happy.
I don't know what happiness is, guys.
All right. Best case scenario for Georgia. Clint, where can this team go?
This team can win the national championship and be the only team in modern college football history with the playoff format as is, with NIL, with everything else, to repeat back-to-back seasons. We can do it. We have the team. We have the roster. We have the coaches. Go look at Todd Monk in year 3 with the quarterback. It is outstanding what happens. The ceiling, the sky is the limit. A perfect season, blowing past Alabama, knocking them out of the playoff, beating a weakened playoff field at that point. I don't even care who is in it. and winning the national championship is the ceiling.
Yeah, it's fascinating that, like, as a Georgia fan, you haven't been in this position. You know what I'm saying? It's like how do you go into a season? We are so used to going into the season with all the pent-up anxiety of year after year of wanting it but not seeing it. But this year, none of that is present. All of that pent-up anxiety has been relieved. And now what you have as a Georgia fan is, like, I think a lot of Georgia fans have much more realistic expectations for this team than they ever have before. But there are opposing fan bases that are listening to this podcast right now, and they're going to think this is insane. But I almost think Georgia fans have skewed the other way, that their expectations for this team might be too low. I think there are some people that needed to hear you say that. I think there are some people whose expectations for this team might be that, like, oh, I'll just be happy if we make it to the SEC championship game and we give Alabama a good game. That's probably the best we could do.
Because Daniel, do you know what mentality I had leading up to the national championship? Here was my mentality.
Okay.
Hey, we made it. It was a good team. It was a great run. We're not even going to compete in this stadium. Lucas Oil Field is just going to eat us up, Alabama.
Yeah.
And I thought, I was writing our obituary before the game. I was. And then what happened?
Was that we won the game.
There you go. Guys, we've exercised the ghost. You don't have to do this anymore. The expectation is to be in the SEC championship, to make a competitive game against Alabama. I'm not promising a win, but I'm telling you that's the expectation. And the ceiling is get out of the basement. Stop hiding behind the moss and the mushrooms in the dark and depraved corner of your basement that you're in. I know I hate good things and happiness, but jump out of the plane. It's fun.
Let's do it. That's Clint. I'm Daniel. We are the Locked On Bulldogs podcast, and we will see you guys tomorrow.